Chapter 31. The Early Antigen as POV. Gina. The Alpha wants to speak to you. Achius waiting for you in the guest room. One of the guards informed me as I reclined on a sun lounger by the pool, sunbathing and swimming are my little luxuries. And since no one dares come here, I indulge in them fully. I was about to change my habits just because Maximus had the poor taste to choose that dullard as his Luna. I thought he had left. I replied lazily, adjusting my sunglasses. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Tell him I'll be there in 10 minutes. The guard gave a curt nod and left. I smirked to myself. I knew it. He couldn't resist me in the end. That pathetic excuse for a Luna could never give him what he truly needs. Sheer stiff, cold, and utterly dull. Pretending to be so proper dose and turn your place in a man's bed. Especially a man like Maximus. Poor girl, I almost feel sorry for her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. How not in a million years. But then, a flicker of curiosity crossed my mind. Why send a guard to fetch me instead of mind, linking, and why the guest room of all places? Could it be one of his usual games? My smirk grew wider. Oh, how have you missed those games and him? If I play my cards right, it'll be the one by his side as the rightful Luna. And that social, climbing little nobody will be out in the cold where she belongs. I wrapped my pareo around me and headed toward the guest room, my revealing swimsuit barely concealed. I knew why he had called me, and I was ready to deliver my most seductive performance yet. Tonight, Maximus would remember why no one else could compare to me. I knocked on the door but was met with silence. Confused but undeterred, I decided to step inside. The room was dark, the heavy curtains drawn. I flipped on the lights, scanning the space, my excitement waning slightly when I saw no one. Maybe HES in the bathroom, I murmured to myself, running a hand through my hair. Or perhaps he was lying in wait, ready to surprise me once I stepped in. My pulse quickened at the thought, anticipation bubbling beneath my skin. But as the seconds passed, reality began to set in. There was no sound, no movement, no sign of Maximus. Maybe he hasn't arrived yet. I reasoned, unwilling to let my disappointment take hold. Letting my pareo fall to the floor, I draped myself across the plush bed, striking a pose that would leave him breathless the moment he walked in. The minutes dragged on in silence, each one chipping away at my confidence. 10 minutes passed. Still, no sign of him. The spark of excitement it felt earlier was now dimming, replaced by an uneasy feeling I couldn't quite place. Maybe this is just a joke the guards came up with to make fun of me. I muttered under my breath, my frustration rising. When I find that idiot, he'll pay for this insolence. Just as I was about to storm out of the room, footsteps echoed from the hallway, and my heart skipped a beat. A flicker of hope ignited within me. It was to scam after all he was finally here. He wanted to be with me. He couldn't stay away any longer. I straightened up, striking a sensual pose, and faced the door, anticipation building. Maybe he was just busy and running late, I whispered to myself, excitement rushing through me. I was ready to show him exactly why HE'd been foolish to let me go. The door creaked open, and my breath hitched. Instead of Maximus, however, a stranger stepped into the room. My heart sank, but my mind scrambled to place him. He was of medium height with dark hair and piercing brown eyes. I didn't know him, but there was something familiar about his presence had I seen him before. He moved toward the bed, his gaze intense, making no attempt to hide the lust in his eyes. A smirk tugged at the corner of his lips as he took in the sight of me. He was handsome, dressed in black pants and a crisp white shirt. The kind of man who knew how to turn heads. "You're a very sexy woman," he said, with a cocky grin, his voice low and confident. I rolled my eyes, unimpressed. This isn't the first time I've heard that, I replied smoothly, my confidence unwavering. his gaze never leaving me. I bet it isn't. Beauty like yours deserves to be admired and recognized. Maximus was an idiot to let you go. His words hit harder than I expected. I was sure whether to feel flattered or enraged by his implication, but there was something about this encounter that felt different, like it was leading somewhere I was quite ready for. Thanks, I guess, I said coldly. But now you must go. I'm expecting someone, and he can't see you here with me. I'm sure you understand. Unfazed. Relax. Nothing's going to happen. How are you so sure? I raised an eyebrow. You don't know him. He can be very aggressive when he gets angry. His gaze darkened, and with a self-assured tone, he replied, because the man you're waiting for is no other than me. I blinked in shock. You have to be kidding me. How is this possible? He leaned back, giving me a knowing look. I was the one who sent the guard to tell you that I was waiting for you. But the guard was clear. I protested. He said the Alpha was waiting for me. The Alpha? Not you. He shrugged with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Maximus is not the only Alpha in the world. In case you didn't notice, I'm an Alpha too. I stared at him, disbelief still flooding my mind. Oh, so why did you invite me here? What do you want from me? He leaned forward, eyes gleaming with something dangerous. I want to make you a proposal. A very advantageous one. A proposal. My curiosity was piqued, but I wasn't ready to fall into whatever trap he was setting. What kind of proposal? I want you to help me separate Maximus from Adelina. His voice low and menacing. And eventually, I want you to help me destroy him. I narrowed my eyes. If I help you, what's in it for me? He laughed, a dark and sardonic sound that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. It's obvious, isn't it? Maximus will be all yours. I couldn't suppress the flicker of interest at his words, but I pushed it aside. And what do you gain from this? Are you trying to take Maximus' place? He leaned back in the chair, his confidence unwavering. I will watch Maximus fall, and then he'll take his place. That's all I want, and he'll have it. If you help me. I considered his offer for a moment, but I wasn't one to jump into schemes without understanding the full picture. But if Maximus falls, I won't be able to be Luna. Then why help you? I don't care about Maximus. I was with him because I wanted to be Luna. A chious and arrogant, selfish, hollow-centric pig. I don't care about him. If the only thing you want is to be Luna, he said with a sly smile, then I'll make you my Luna. You're beautiful, sexy, and frankly, it'd be a fool if I didn't see that. My eyes narrowed. And who guarantees me that you'll actually make me Luna once you take Maximus' place? His gaze never wavered. I can make that promise right now. I'm already an Alpha. I raised an eyebrow. Which pack is yours? The Crescent Moon pack. His voice dripping with confidence. Crescent Moon. The name echoed in my mind. Crescent Moon pack. I've heard of it before. Isn't it the bitch's old pack? I blurted out in surprise. He glared at me, his expression turning colder, a menacing edge to his voice. Beautiful, but with a poor choice of words. He took a step closer, his presence heavy and intimidating. I quickly backpedaled. I meant, isn't it Adelina's old pack? I corrected myself. That's better. He replied with a tight smile. Yes, it is. The tension in the room thickened, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being swept into something far darker than I had imagined. And why do you want to separate them? Are you in love with her too? My voice dimmed with anger. I don't get it. What is it that everyone sees in her? Why does everyone get so excited? He shook his head, disgust evident on his face. No, how could I? I'm her brother. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban. Heartfelt thanks to your unfailing Quixote's enthusiasm. I stared at him in disbelief. Her brother? That doesn't make any sense. If you're her brother, then why do you want to destroy her life? He clenched his jaw, his eyes cold, who said, "I want to destroy Adelina. I want to destroy Maximus and get her away from that monster. Why?" My frustration rising. "Next to Maximus, your sister will become the queen of all werewolves." He scoffed bitterly. "Maximus would never be king as long as I'm alive. And besides, I know they're not a real couple, despite their public display. I know what HES done to her. The rejection, the imprisonment, the abuse. The only thing I can't figure out is why he made her his Luna, and how he convinced her to go along with it. I can't help you with this. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice softening with regret. All I know is that one day, he came to me and told me he wanted to break things off with me so he could present Adelina as his Luna. And, as you can see, he eventually did. He leaned in, his voice lower now, more insistent. "All I want from you is your help. You know Maximus better than anyone. You know his weaknesses, his secret. Help me, and you'll be paid as we agreed. Unless, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. You change your mind and decide you want to take money instead of becoming my Luna. I can offer you a fortune." I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "How are you going to do that? Your pack is small. From what I know, you can't even afford my tastes." He chuckled darkly, his smile confident. "All I can tell you right now is that I'm not alone. There are powerful people behind me, people who despise Maximus as much as I do. You'd only benefit if you agree to work with us. But if you betray us, the consequences for you will be unbearable." His stern tone sent a shiver down my spine. I knew he was lying. "I see. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling in my chest. "So, what's your answer?" I thought for a moment. What did I really have to lose? My future was uncertain, and I felt more and more like a pawn in a game I didn't choose. But this was something different. The opportunity to take control, to be more than just a discarded lover. My answer is yes. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice unwavering. I don't have anything to lose after all. A triumphant glint in his eyes. Good. Well, make sure you get everything you deserve. Chapter for Tito Gazer Revelation Adelina SPOV. I woke up today feeling completely drained, so I decided to stay in bed for the entire morning. Despite having a fantastic time yesterday, it left me feeling more exhausted than I expected. I still can't believe it. If someone had told me 2 months ago that I would spend an entire day picnicking, talking, and acting like a real couple with Maximus, I would have thought they were out of their mind or just messing with me. And yet, here I am, feeling happy and content the day with him. I couldn't be more confused. Has Maximus really fallen for me? Or is this just another one of his schemes to keep me around? And if it is some sort of plan, then why does he do it? I've already accepted the position of his Lou with everything that comes with it. If I were him, I would spend my free time doing whatever brings me joy, like indulging in my hobbies, not having a picnic with someone I used to reject. His behavior is so contradictory. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. The more I think about it, the more confused I get. Maybe it's best to just get up, get ready, and stop overthinking things. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I have brunch planned with Alex and Marissa today, and I definitely don't want to be late. I got up, heading straight to the bathroom for my usual routine. Half an hour later, I was dressed and ready to go downstairs for some coffee when I heard a knock on the door. "Come in," I called out, waiting. The door opened, and Jake stepped inside. "Good morning, sis. How was your night?" "Good morning." "Jake, I didn't know you were still here. I thought you left with Dad." He shook his head. No, I had some matters to take care of before I leave. I also wanted to talk to you. I was looking for you all day yesterday, and no one seemed to know where you were. Where were you? Yesterday I was with Maximus. We had a picnic. I replied, trying to keep it casual. Jake's smile faltered, his eyes narrowing. Oh, how nice. What a lovely couple you to make. I'm so happy for you. His voice turned bitter. Your mate seems to be taking such good care of you, considering the fact that he rejected you and treated you like dirt at first. His words hit me harder than I expected. Shocked by the venom in his tone, Jake had always been so composed, so kind. This sudden outburst caught me completely off guard. What was happening to him? Why was he reacting this way? Trying to process what he had said. What? You know. My voice trembling slightly. Feeling embarrassed, I lowered my head in shame. Come on, Adelina. Why are you hiding from me? I know everything. People talk, and even though I've been far away, I knew you weren't happy, that you were being mistreated. His words hit me like a slap to the face. If you knew, why didn't you do anything to protect me? Why didn't you come and save me? My voice wavered with a mix of betrayal and anger. If they knew, why had they left me here to suffer alone? Why hadn't anyone come to get me, to bring me back home? Looking down before meeting my gaze again, because at first, I didn't know if it was true or just Rua's jealousy, driven lies. And since you didn't say anything on the phone, I assumed it was the latter. I stared at him, trying to process his words. And what changed your mind? Why don't you believe those rumors anymore? His expression darkened slightly as he spoke. I realized it when I came here. Adelina, what one sees with their own eyes can't be undone by words. But I don't understand. When you came, there was no mistreatment, no abuse, no rejection. I was already Luna, and I was respected and treated well by everyone. So how did you come to the conclusion that the rumors were true? He hesitated, his gaze shifting away as though searching for the right words. I can't really explain it. It's hard for me to put it into words. His answer didn't sit well with me. I could tell there was something he was saying, something he was hiding. It didn't make sense, and it certainly didn't make me feel any better. But I wasn't about to push him further on the matter. Not now. I knew when I didn't want to press an issue. It was one of those times. Still, I was far from convinced. And sooner or later, I would get to the truth of it. There was something different about him. Something had changed since I left. And I was going to find out what it was. And see, to my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Trying to sound casual. So, what are your plans for today? His face brightened at the shift in conversation. You'd like to spend the day with my lovely sister, if you don't have any other plans. I raised an eyebrow at him. Well, I have a brunch planned with Alex and Marissa. You can join us if you want. His expression faltered for a second before he quickly recovered. Oh. I thought we'd be alone. I glanced at him curiously. Do you want me to cancel it? No. I'd like to meet your new friends. All right then, I said with a smile. Let me get dressed, and we'll meet in the hall in half an hour. He nodded, and I could see the faintest smile tug at the corners of his lips. But deep down, I could feel that something was off. Something wasn't right, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something from me. Maximus POV. I was sitting in my office, flipping through the new member files, waiting for Chris to arrive so we could check everything. The silence was comforting, and I was fully immersed in the task at hand when a knock on the door interrupted me. Expecting Chris, I opened it, only to see an Omega instead. If I remembered correctly, his name was Larry, and he worked as a dungeon cleaner. I motioned for him to come in, watching as he hesitantly approached my desk. He took a few slow steps before stopping a mere inch away from my desk, clearing his throat as if preparing for something. It was clear from his body language that he was nervous, likely terrified even. Good M. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. And may I have a minute of your time, please? I glanced up at him, irritation already starting to build. I have a lot of work to do. If it's nothing important, you can come back later. No, sir. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It's very important. I need to speak with you immediately. While shaky, carried a note of urgency that caught my attention. I set the file down, fully aware that what he had to say would take priority. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What is it about? Raising my eyes from the documents. Swallowing hard before continuing. It's about something I saw. Something strange. Don't beat around the bush. I snapped, my patience thinning. Tell me what it is. Speak. I despise wasted time, especially when it's spent on vagueness. Larry seemed to gather himself before continuing. Last night, as I was cleaning the interrogatory rooms, I heard whispers coming from the next room. I peeked through a hole in the wall and saw two men. One taller with dark hair. The taller one had green eyes, and the other had dark brown eyes. I leaned back in my chair, sizing him up. Do you know who they were? He shook his head. No, sir. They definitely didn't belong to our pack. Their scent was different, but I'm completely sure they were high-ranking wolves. They had an aura of power around them. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued but trying not to show too much interest. Is that all? No, sir. I tried to eavesdrop, and I heard them talking about our Luna. He continued, his voice growing more serious as he went on. That got my attention. My eyes narrowed. The irritation I'd felt earlier replaced by a sudden spike of alertness. They did what? My voice cold and dangerous. Larry paused briefly, clearly hesitant, before continuing. The taller one was asking the shorter one if he had found out why Luna had accepted the position. When the shorter one replied negatively, the taller one became furious. And then what happened? My pulse quickening. This was just idle gossip, it was something important. The taller one then suggested the shorter one approach Gina and extract information from her. He also said offering her Luna's position if she agreed to be their partner. My eyes narrowed further. But we already have a Luna. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice stinged with frustration. Larry flinched at my tone but quickly continued. With all due respect. They said that when the taller one becomes alpha, HES going to need one. I raised an eyebrow, feeling a cold sense of dread creep up my spine. Alpha of which pack of? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Sir, he said, barely above a whisper, covering his face with his hands in fear. They are not my words. But there's, he added quickly, almost pleading for me to understand. I let out a deep breath, trying to control the anger that was beginning to boil inside me. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to hurt you. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice softened, but still sharp. I will reward you for telling me what you heard. Is there anything else you want to share? He looked up at me, still trembling, but after a moment, he shook his head. No, sir. That's all. Good. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Giving him a firm nod. You've done well. Larry, I'll make sure you're rewarded. The beta will find you later to inform you about your reward. One thing is for sure. It will be very generous. I assured him, my tone firm. Thank you. Thank you. Very much. Sir, he stammered, bowing deeply before stepping forward as though he were about to kiss my feet in gratitude. Instinctively, I pushed him away, my voice cold and commanding. Stand up. You don't need to do that. He flinched at my harsh tone but reluctantly followed my command. He rose slowly and backed away toward the door, his face still filled with fear and gratitude. I watched him leave, the door clicking shut behind him. Once alone, the weight of what he had revealed hit me all over again. Something was happening, and I was about to let it catch me off guard. He bowed his head quickly, relief flooding his face as he turned to leave. He looked excited and happy, even though he didn't know what his reward would be. In addition to giving him money, I decided I would secure a trust and scholarship for whatever university his children wished to attend. I always take care of my pack members, and that's why they're so loyal to me. But who were these two conspiring in the dungeons? One should never talk in such places, especially at night, if one has nothing to hide. I had a strong feeling these men were up to something, and I needed to figure it out quickly. I suspected one of them was definitely Nicholas, but I needed confirmation. The other one, to my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for her unfailing patience, enthusiasm, had characteristics too common for me to make a solid guess. As I was deep in thought, Chris entered the room, and I immediately informed him of Larry's news. His reaction didn't surprise me. I didn't have any doubts about Nicholas. Chris muttered, but who could the other one be? Larry said he seemed high-ranked too. There's only one way to find out, I said with certainty. And what's that? Clearly curious. We're going to use the reductio ad absurdum method. What? The reducing sodium method. Looking bewildered. The reductio ad absurdum method. You moron. I corrected him dryly. Which of our guests stayed until this morning? To council members, the 2 European alphas, and the 3 African alphas. Oh, and Adelina's brother, Jake, is still here. The council members are too old to have dark hair or to plot against me. And if I remember correctly, the European brothers you mean are the 2 Russians. They're both blonde, and we've had an alliance with them for years. They wouldn't jeopardize it. The Africans are all excluded for obvious reasons. I paused. So the one left is Jake. Chris' face turned serious as realization hit. We had our answer. Now it was time to dig deeper. Really? Do you think Ace involved in all this? Chris asked, utterly surprised. Probably, I replied, my voice steady. If you consider the fact that he already has business dealings with Nicholas. It's likely. Maybe He is also aware of the mistreatment I've shown his sister. But why plot against you? Chris countered. His sister is already the Luna, and will soon be the queen of all werewolves. If he knows about your treatment of her, why didn't he confront you directly? I'd at least do that if I were him. My dear friend. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice growing darker. A lot is at stake. He doesn't want to make me his enemy. He prefers to act from the shadows to get what he wants. Besides, I don't think He is doing it to protect his sister. It's all about protecting his own interests and satisfying his ambitions. What kind of man is he? Chris said with disgust. Does he really put his interests above his sister's well-being? It seems the older you get, the softer you become. I replied coldly. On the altar of power, everything is sacrificed. Would you do such a thing? Chris asked, his tone serious. I honestly don't know. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice wavering slightly. This was a good question. The truth was, I gave Adelina a second chance not because I truly cared about her, but because I needed her to be queen. Was I really like her brother? Is Adelina just unlucky enough to have the people closest to her betray her? I cowed and answered that. All I knew was that there was a lot at stake, and even though I didn't want to admit it, I did have feelings for her. I snapped out of my thoughts and looked at Chris with renewed focus. Just to be sure, put to guards to follow him discreetly. When he leaves, send to spies to watch his every move. Got it, Chris said, nodding. May I ask, though, will you share your suspicions with Adelina about her brother? No, I replied, my tone firm. I can't. I'm just afraid she might unconsciously reveal something to him, and that could ruin everything. I see, Chris said, sounding thoughtful. Maybe you're right. Now, let's revise those files if you want to finish up early. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Trying to shift focus. Fine by me, he replied with a sly grin. I have no plans for tonight. But I do, I said with a smirk. Oh, Chris raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. Yes. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Standing up from my desk. But that's none of your business. Chris chuckled. Fair enough. Max, fair enough. Chapter 33, Misunderstanding Adelina's POV. The sun had already set when I decided to return to my room after a day spent with my friends and my brother. I was walking through the garden, basking in the lingering warmth of the evening and hailing the sweet perfume of the flowers when I noticed Nicholas sitting alone on a bench. Hey, beautiful. He greeted me with a warm smile as I got closer. Hi, Nicholas. What are you doing out here all alone? To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Just looking at the stars, he replied, his voice distant, as if he were lost in thought. I love looking at the stars. To my agent extraordinaire, Mythical Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My voice filled with excitement. I used to do that with my dad. And may I ask, turning his head to meet my gaze, who's stopping you from doing it now? Come and join me. His tone was casual, yet there was something inviting in the way he continued to gaze at the sky. Feeling the warmth of his words, and sat down next to him. A comfortable silence settled between us as we both turned our attention to the night sky. It was magical constellations twinkled above. The scent of night, blooming flowers filled the air, and the soft rustle of leaves created a symphony in nature's music. In moments like these, it felt as if the world stood still, allowing us to truly appreciate how deeply we are intertwined with nature. It was our home, the only place that offered true peace and tranquility. We stayed there for a couple of hours, enjoying the serenity of the night. Our conversation ebbed and flowed as we talked about everything and nothing. I hadn't realized how much I missed feeling so at peace, how little things like a long brunch with family and friends, a leisurely walk in nature, or simply looking up at the stars could bring a sense of contentment so pure. These were the things that truly mattered, the things that made life rich, simple, and deeply fulfilling. They didn't cost anything, but they were worth everything. By the time the clock struck 2 in the morning, I felt the weight of the night settle in, as much as my soul yearned to stay outside. Basking in the tranquility, my body was too exhausted to keep up. I stood reluctantly and said goodbye to Nicholas, my heart heavy as I made my way back to my room. When I lay down in my bed, the softness of the sheets felt comforting, but it didn't take long for my tired mind to succumb to the peaceful embrace of sleep. It had been a day full of simple joys, and the night had wrapped me in its quiet beauty. I drifted off almost instantly, feeling grateful for the small moments that made life extraordinary. Max and SPOV. It was 9 in the evening when I finally finished work, the weight of a demanding and exhausting day at the office pressing down on me. At least Chris and I had managed to clear up all the pending issues and wrap up the current cases. A small victory after such a long day. Despite the exhaustion, the night outside was beautiful. The stars sparkled brightly in the sky, and even though the moon was absent, the view was still breathtaking. I decided to go to Adelina's room and invite her dinner. I linked the gazer, instructing them to prepare a meal for two in the garden, with candles and flowers to create a more intimate setting. I figured Adelina hadn't eaten yet, but even if she had, I hoped she would not mind keeping me company. As I made my way down the corridor, I found myself admiring the beauty of the garden through the large windows. Then, something caught my eye: to figures sitting on one of the benches. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It seemed harmless enough, but as I got closer to the window, one of them was Adelina, but the other was Nicholas. Anger surged through me in an instant, flooding my veins with a fiery heat. My emotions spiraled out of control. For the first time in years, since my mother had left us, I felt a deep, gnawing sense of disappointment, betrayal, and rejection. Why the hell is she so comfortable with him? Why is she more at ease with this fool than with me? The thought was like a punch to my gut, and I couldn't shake the growing sense of jealousy and frustration. Is there something between them? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The questions raced through my mind, each one gnawing at my sanity. I knew I was letting my jealousy cloud my judgment, but I couldn't help it. I had seen how attached Nicholas was not just to Jake but also to Adelina. Could there be a hidden agenda behind all this? Was there a chance that Adelina was part of a larger scheme, a plot to undermine me? Was this some elaborate plan to take my pack away from me? Could she be a traitor, working alongside Nicholas? The thought hit me like a ton of bricks. When I thought about how badly I had treated her in the beginning, how cold and dismissive I had been, it made sense. At least on some level. I couldn't ignore the possibility that she had a motive. The deal, the acceptance of all my terms without any real protest, was it all part of a larger plan to gain my trust? To betray me from within? I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms as I fought to control the storm raging inside me. My breath came in shallow bursts, my mind spinning with the worst possible scenarios. I had to know. I had to find out what was really going on between them before it was too late. Questions swarmed my mind, each one more insistent than the last. I couldn't focus. My head was a whirlwind of chaos. Letting my emotions take control was the last thing I needed right now. But I couldn't shake it off. I knew all too well the consequences of letting myself lose control. The last time I allowed my emotions to dictate my actions, it ended in disaster. It cost me more than I was willing to admit. So, I made a silent vow never again would I allow myself to spiral like this. I had to pull myself together, regain my composure. With a sharp exhale, I linked the gazer, instructing them to cancel the dinner in the garden. The thought of sharing a peaceful meal with her after everything that had happened seemed ridiculous. I needed to clear my head. A walk in the forest would be the only thing to calm the storm inside me. Drive KO. 2 needed the space. Hours of wandering the woods, trying to drown out the turmoil, left me with a sense of temporary relief. But when I finally returned to my bedroom, the anger was subsiding, yet there was still something gnawing at me. Something heavier. The ache in my chest refused to fade. The night had passed in a haze of whiskey and cigarettes. I spent it alone, trying to numb the confusion that kept swirling around me. No amount of alcohol could make the thoughts go away. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. When morning came, I woke with a pounding headache, the familiar ache of a hangover twisting my insides. I should have stayed in bed, but that wasn't an option. The responsibilities of being an alpha always waiting, relentless, demanding. As I walked out of my room, I almost wished I hadn't. Adelina was there, smiling like nothing was wrong, her face glowing with happiness. She was humming some song, her steps light and carefree, and in that moment, it irritated me more than anything. I had always loved seeing her smile, loved how her presence could light up a room. But today, it felt like a dagger to my chest. Because I knew where that smile came from. I knew who had put that dumb smile on her face. The thought made my blood boil, the jealousy clawing its way to the surface. How could she be so happy with him? Why was she like that with me? Good morning, Maximus. Her smile wide, her eyes sparkling with something I couldn't place. Morning, I muttered, my tone flat, almost dismissive. I couldn't hide it anymore. I was angry, irrationally angry, and I couldn't pretend otherwise. What's wrong? You don't look so well. Her voice tinged with concern. She cares about you. Draco's voice echoed in my mind. A hint of amusement there. She's worried about you. I didn't need him reminding me of that. It was real. Yeah. Right. I don't buy it. She's just being polite. And that's exactly what irritates me more. She doesn't care. She's just playing the part. I shook my head, trying to push away the inner conflict. My voice came out sharper than intended. Nothing. Her gaze softened, but there was something else there to disappointment. It twisted something inside me, but I couldn't allow myself to care. You should stay in bed if you don't feel well, she suggested, her voice carrying a tenderness that, for some reason, only added fuel to the fire. She's being nice, too damn nice to someone who's done nothing but treat her like an afterthought. I can't do that. In an alpha, I have responsibilities. You know, to my agent extraordinaire, Mylan Nilban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. My words dripping with coldness, more out of habit than intention. She faltered for a moment before nodding, her shoulders slumping slightly. Oh, I see. Then what about breakfast? Will you join me? Her offer wasn't just for breakfast. It was an invitation, a gesture of care. But all I could focus on was the nagging thought that it was me she wanted to spend time with. It was Nicholas. And that truth felt like a weight I couldn't shake. No, thanks. I don't have time to lose, I replied curtly, the words harsh, even though part of me wished I hadn't said them. She gave me a small nod, her face falling into a quiet disappointment before she turned and walked away. And just like that, I was alone again, feeling more frustrated and restless than I had all morning. I headed to my office, each step dragging with the heaviness of what I had just done. I knew I was being rude, even cruel. And yet, I couldn't stop. My emotions, my pride, everything was tangled up, and I couldn't get a clear view of anything anymore. But one thing was certain, I couldn't keep pretending like nothing was wrong, not when everything inside me was screaming otherwise. Adelina SPOV, I woke up feeling lighter today, a sense of calm and inner peace settling within me. It was as if the weight of the past few days had lifted, even if just for a moment. I followed my usual routine, but there was something different about today. I was officially stepping into some of Luna's responsibilities. And despite everything that had happened, I couldn't help but feel a bit of excitement. I had to eat well, keep my energy up for what lay ahead. As I made my way out of my room, I hummed softly to myself, the tune from a song I'd been singing all morning still dancing in my mind. It was a simple song, but it gave me an unexpected sense of joy, like the universe was in sync for once. I wasn't paying much attention to my surroundings when I accidentally bumped into Maximus. Startled by the sight of him, Maximus looked rough, unshaven, his shirt wrinkled, dark circles beneath his eyes that made him appear exhausted. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Good morning, Maximus, I said cheerfully, trying to brighten the moment. But he barely reacted. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He replied, his tone flat, almost distant, like he didn't even care. I couldn't help but frown, a wave of concern washing over me. What's going on with him? Something wasn't right. Maximus was never this. Detached, It was unlike him to show any signs of vulnerability. But now, it seemed like there was a storm brewing behind his eyes. "What's wrong? You don't look so well." My voice laced with concern. I was sure if he would open up, but I had to know. It was like him to just let it go without at least acknowledging it. "Nothing," he said coldly, as if brushing me off with a simple word. But I could tell something was off. His response lacked its usual strength, and the way he avoided eye contact only added to my suspicion. "You should stay in your bed if you don't feel well," I suggested gently, hoping he'd take the hint. It was to critique I was simply worried about him, but Maximus was stubborn, more stubborn than anyone I knew. "I can't do that. In an alpha, I have many responsibilities. You know," his voice taking on a more rigid, authoritative tone, but something about his response felt like a wall, like he was pushing me away. "Okay, man. I know you have a lot to do, but my advice was for your own sake." "Oh goddess. What's wrong with him?" The thought echoed in my mind. But I held it back. There was nothing I could do to help if he was willing to open up. I tried again, hoping to ease the tension. "Oh, I see. Then, what about having breakfast? Will you join me?" I made the offer lightly, hoping he'd at least agree to sit down and get something to eat. Maybe it would help him feel better. Or at the very least, we could talk for a few minutes. "No thanks. I don't have time to lose," he replied, his words indifferent, his posture stiff. But I was taken aback by his cold response. My heart sank as I tried to hide my disappointment. I had hoped he would at least share a moment of kindness, but it was as if the distance between us had only grown. "Okay. To my agent extraordinaire, Mylen Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." My voice quieter now, feeling both confused and a little hurt by his rejection. Why was he acting like this? I couldn't understand it. I had tried to be friendly, even if I wasn't sure what his mood was about. That's how short his good behavior lasted after all. I thought bitterly. Why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep expecting something different from him? The frustration built in my chest. But this time, I refused to let it consume me. What did I really expect from him? The thought stung. After everything that had happened, after everything he had put me through, why was I still clinging to some shred of hope that he might change? I had learned early on just how much Maximus could hurt. He was unpredictable one moment, achieved to show glimpses of something softer, and the next, achieved to remind me of why I kept my distance. Now the good Maximus is gone, back to his old ways, like nothing ever happened, but something inside me shifted. I was going to let this get to me again. I couldn't. I wouldn't. I was done allowing his mood swings and coldness to drag me down. I had too much to focus on now, too many responsibilities. The pack needed me, and I needed to keep my head on straight. I won't let his bad behavior affect me. Not anymore. I repeated the thought in my mind like a mantra. I'm stronger than this. I won't take it anymore. And with that, I turned away and continued on my way, doing my best to shake off the storm inside me. But deep down, I knew it wouldn't be the last time Maximus would test my resolve. Chapter 30 for lunaticking over Adelina SPOV. I started my day with a quick stop at the coffee shop, a much-needed boost before heading to my new office. 2 weeks had passed since I found my replacement at the hospital, and since then, I'd been working tirelessly to sort through the pending issues and familiarizing myself with the dynamics of my new role. My office was located between Maximus and Chris' offices, as they had told me yesterday, climbing the stairs to the first floor, where the offices of the high-ranking wolves were located. I passed by Maximus' office. It was strange he hadn't spoken to me in days. I didn't understand it, but I was about to chase after him for answers. If he wanted to avoid me, that was his choice, and I was going to force him into any conversations. If HE's trying to ignore me, I'll respect that, I thought to myself, but there was a small part of me that wished HED at least give me some clarity. I shook off the thought and pushed forward, finally reaching my own office. The door opened, and I stepped in, only to stop in my tracks. The office was absolutely breathtaking. Sunlight poured through the large windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden glow. The space was modern, with sleek white furniture and minimalist design that made the room feel spacious and open. Soft greys and whites dominated the color palette, creating a calm, sophisticated atmosphere. My eyes were immediately drawn to the desk made of clear glass. It reflected the surrounding light and gave the entire space an airy feel. Two white leather armchairs sat comfortably in front of it, offering a welcoming space for visitors. On the walls, abstract paintings in muted tones added a touch of artistry to the professional setting. Behind my desk, a panoramic window opened to a breathtaking view of the forest. It was quiet, serene, and a kind of environment I could see myself getting lost in during long workdays. I stood there for a moment, soaking it all in. Whoever had designed this office knew me far better than I expected. It feels like they took every detail into account: my tastes, my need for peace, the balance of functionality and beauty. I had no complaints. I was more than satisfied with how everything looked. The office was exactly what I needed: a place where I could feel comfortable, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of the Pact's inner workings. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing Kishut's enthusiasm. We spend so much of our time in our workspaces. They should be a reflection of who we are. I took a deep breath and made my way to the desk, sinking into the comfortable chair. As I turned on my computer, I allowed myself a moment to admire the view once more before diving into the work that awaited me. There were plenty of files scattered in front of me, each representing a different tissue that needed my attention. As I sifted through them, my mind started to organize the priorities. My first order of business was a change that had been long overdue: the adoption process for orphan pups. The current background checks for foster families were insufficient, and the system needed a complete overhaul. In my old pack, we were small enough that everyone knew each other, so background check wasn't as crucial. But in a larger pack like this, it was essential that each foster family be thoroughly vetted. I was going to let another pup end up in the wrong hands just because of outdated processes. Another issue that had been nagging at me was the role of wolves in the pack. It was clear to me that there was an overwhelming gender bias. Very few women held high, ranking or senior positions. This was a problem. Women today were educated, skilled, and more than capable of handling positions of power, yet they were being undervalued and restricted to lesser roles. I couldn't stand by and let that continue. The pack needed to evolve, and I would push for the changes needed to ensure that every wolf, regardless of gender, had an equal shot at leadership. And then there was the issue of the Ongazer. Ongazer were often seen as the lowest tier of the pack, treated as nothing more than servants to the higher-ranking wolves. But I knew better. Ongazer were essential to the day running of the pack. They took on the crucial tasks that kept everything functioning smoothly. Without them, the pack would fall apart. They deserved to be treated with respect and given the same privileges as everyone else. I was determined to ensure that their contributions were recognized, and that they received the same recognition and opportunities as any other wolf. I paused for a moment, thinking of the weight of these issues and the changes I wanted to make. There's so much to do, and the work is only just beginning. Taking all of this into account, I knew that I needed to present a clear plan to Maximus and the other high-ranking wolves. It would be a hard conversation, but it was necessary. These problems couldn't be swept under the rug any longer, and I was going to back down just because some wolves were resistant to change. With a sense of determination, I began to draft a presentation, carefully outlining each issue and proposing viable solutions. The pack deserves better, I thought to myself. It's time for things to change. And as I worked, I couldn't help but wonder how will Maximus react to all of this. I had no illusions about his attitude toward change. But one thing was clear: I was going to let his stubbornness or arrogance stand in the way of progress. I had a mission, and I was prepared to fight for it. Maximus POV. It has been nearly a month now that I've been avoiding Adelina. The silence between us has become almost deafening, but I can't bring myself to break it. My spies have come up empty, providing no evidence of her involvement in any plot against me, despite the fact that she spent so many hours with Nicholas during his stay here. Infuriates me. The way she enjoys his company, the way she smiles at him, the way she laughs as if he were the only one who could make her feel at ease. It drives me wild. I can't stand it. I should be the one she confides in, the one she seeks out, not him. And yet, she spends all that time with him. What does that mean for me? The logical part of my mind knows it doesn't mean anything. But the rest of me, the part that has been hardened by years of power, control, and relentless dominance, that part can't let it go. I have no proof, no solid reason to believe Shess betraying me, but the jealousy gnaws at me relentlessly. Every time I think about her laughing with Nicholas, every time I think of them talking for hours in the garden, my blood boils. I can't stand how easy it is for her to be with him. What is it about him? Nicholas has left now, a week ago, but the damage has already been done. We barely speak anymore. My conversations with Adelina have become so strained, so forced. We share meals together, lunch or dinner, but it's nothing more than a formality, a mask we put on for the pack. Our discussions rarely stray from the business of the pack, the responsibility Shess taken on as Luna. And now, Shess telling me that in the upcoming week, she'll present a plan for changes, modifications in various areas of the pack. Shess been working on it for some time now, and while part of me is curious to see what it contains, the other part of me is bracing for something I won't like. I can already feel the tension building, knowing Shess about to challenge things, push for changes I'm not sure I'm ready to accept. What if it's just another one of her schemes? What if Shess trying to shake things up so she can step into a role she isn't supposed to have? Shess proven herself to be capable, but is she truly doing this for the pack, or for her own gain? I've always been protective of the power I've worked so hard to build. I don't want anyone, even someone as brilliant and determined as Adelina, rocking the foundation I've laid. Shess so intelligent, so damn persuasive, and I can't help but wonder, is she trying to take control of the pack from me? I need to see this plan. I need to know what Shess thinking, where her mind is at. But at the same time, I can't shake this feeling of unease, this nagging suspicion that there's more to her than what she lets on. As much as I want to keep my distance, as much as I tell myself I should stay detached, I know deep down that I can't. There's something about Adelina, something compelling that keeps drawing me back in, no matter how hard I try to avoid it. Shess always been like this, hasn't she? A mystery I can't quite solve, a challenge I can't beat. I hate the fact that I don't know where I stand with her, that I can't let my guard down. Not now. Not when everything I've built could be at risk. I'll see what she presents. I'll listen carefully, but I'll be prepared for anything, because I'm done being caught off guard by anyone, especially her. GTTT the following week in the PAX meeting room. Adelina SPOV. Today was the day. The day I would present my restructuring plan to Maximus and the other high-ranking wolves of the pack. There was no going back now. I knew that as Luna, I had the authority to enforce the changes I wanted to make. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Maximus trusted me to take on this role, and I had had every right to implement the reforms I saw fit. But I also believed in the power of dialogue. Rules should be discussed, not imposed without consideration. And that's exactly what I plan to do today, present my ideas, listen to their concerns, and hope we could find common ground. I took a deep breath as I dressed in my black suit, mentally preparing myself. The weight of the responsibility I had taken on as Luna was heavy, but it also felt right. This was where I belonged, in this position, making the changes I had always believed were necessary. Still, I couldn't shake the anxiety that bubbled in my chest. Despite practicing my speech for hours yesterday, My stomach churned with nerves as I walked down the hallway toward the conference room. As I stepped into the room, my heart raced. The high-ranking members of the pack were seated around the large round table, all eyes turning to me. Maximus was at the head of the table, his powerful presence filling the room. Chris to his left, the rest of the elders scattered around, and there was an empty chair to Maximus' right, waiting for me. I took a deep breath, pushing aside my nerves, and greeted them all with a firm good morning. I could feel their eyes on me as I made my way to my seat, but I held my ground. I set up my laptop, adjusted the materials in front of me, and stood before them. The weight of the moment settled over me. This was at the beginning of something new for the pack. I wasn't here just to follow tradition. I was here to challenge the status quo, to make things better, and though a small part of me feared resistance, I was going to back down. Today, in here to present the new restructuring plan, focusing on 3 areas that need immediate attention. As you can see, the plan is divided into 3 main pillars. I began. The first concerns the Umgazer and their rights. The second focuses on the position of she-wolves in the pack. And the third, most importantly for me, is the improvement of the adoption process. I felt the eyes of the pack members shift as I started diving into the details. I spoke about the necessity of treating Umgazer with the respect they deserved, of ensuring that the women of the pack were given the opportunities to lead, and of overhauling the adoption process to make sure it was safer and more thorough for the pups in our care. I explained how these changes would not only improve the quality of life for all pack members, but would also position us as a forward-thinking, progressive pack. For an hour, I laid out my vision, confident that the changes I was proposing were for the greater good. And then, just as I was beginning to feel the momentum building, an elder interrupted. "What is all this nonsense about Umgazer right?" His voice harsh and full of contempt. "Maximus, are you aware of what Luna is talking about? Do you agree with her?" I felt my breath catch in my throat, but I didn't let the interruption rattle me. I had anticipated resistance. The elders had always been set in their ways. They were more comfortable with tradition than chained, but I wasn't backing down. Maximus didn't immediately respond. The elder went on, his voice dripping with disdain. "Don't you see that her plan goes against the very foundation of the rules that have been in place for centuries? This isn't how we operate. We're wolves, not some charity." A cold silence settled in the room. I could feel the tension building, a palpable heaviness in the air. But then, to my surprise, Maximus stood up. His voice was calm, but there was an undeniable authority in it that cut through the elders' objections like a blade. "I believe that while Luna's suggestions may seem radical to many of us," Maximus began, his eyes sweeping over the table, "I have to admit that they are appropriate in exactly what the pack needs in order to renew itself and continue running smoothly." His words hit me like a rush of warmth. For a moment, I thought I imagined the hint of approval in his gaze. But then his next words brought me back to reality. "We are one of the most powerful packs, not just in North America, but around the world," Maximus continued, his voice steady and unwavering. "However, many of our day management processes are outdated. I will be king in a few months, and we will be a royal pack. We can't operate on deprecated processes that have been abandoned by many packs long ago. We must be pioneers and set the example for others to follow." His words resonated with me, fueling the fire inside me. This was the reason I had fought so hard for these changes to modernize, to challenge the outdated practices that held us back. I wasn't alone in this fight, and Maximus, my alpha, was standing by me, supporting the plan. That's why I entrusted our Luna to prepare and present to you this restructuring plan. Maximus finished, his gaze locking with mine for a brief moment. I cowled and felt the rush of relief that washed over me. I had expected pushback, but with Maximus' support, I felt more confident than ever that my plan could be implemented. This was just the beginning. I wasn't going to let anyone, not even the elder who had interrupted me, stop what was needed for this pack to thrive. The winds of change were blowing, and I was about to let them die down. The room fell into chaos. Some of the pack members clapped, their approval evident, while others grumbled in disapproval, their harsh words growing louder by the second. Arguments began to fly from every corner, their voices rising in volume and intensity. The tension in the air was palpable, and for the first time since I became Luna, I realized just how deeply conservative this pack was. It was the progressive, forward-thinking group I had hoped to work with. This was a community entrenched in tradition, its members clinging to outdated beliefs that they weren't ready to let go of. The discomfort gnawed at me. I felt isolated, almost as though I were an outsider in my own pack. The excitement I had felt earlier, the hope of making real change, was starting to crumble under the weight of their resistance. For a moment, I even questioned if I had made the right decision to present the plan in the first place. That was when Maximus spoke again. His voice was commanding, carrying the full weight of his alpha status. Silence. And in that one word, his alpha power radiated through the room like a force of nature. It was immediate, every voice silenced, and the room became still. His dominance was absolute. Thank you, I thought to myself, relief flooding me. Maximus was the anchor I needed in that moment. He was just the alpha of the pack. He was the one who could bring order to the chaos, who could command respect from even the most resistant members. Maximus turned his gaze to the room, his posture tall and unwavering. I think there's no use arguing with each other, he began, his tone measured yet firm. As we all know, Luna has the power under our law to impose any rule she sees fit, provided she has my approval. Regardless, she called this meeting because she values your opinions. She wants to hear from each of you. This shows respect for the pack and for your thoughts. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbert, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience and enthusiasm. You will respect her, as you would me. His eyes met mine then, and there was a soft intensity in them, compassion, understanding, and strength. It was the support I needed more than anything. Now, Yuna, if you're done with your presentation, what do you want us to do? His question, gentle yet assertive, cut through the tension like a knife. I felt a swell of gratitude and, perhaps for the first time in the meeting, I allowed myself to breathe again. Maximus' words had reinvigorated me, reminding me that he was on my side, that he saw the value in what I was trying to do. This was our pack, and together, we would lead it into a brighter future. I stood up, my body suddenly feeling stronger, more resolute. My original desire, I began, my voice clear and firm, was to present a plan that improves many things that have worked in an antiquated way up until now. I want to cover the gaps in the system and optimize it for the betterment of everyone. I paused for a moment, looking around the room. Every eye was on me, some with skepticism, others with cautious curiosity. In no way, I continued, did I want this plan to create controversy or discord. I believe that any decision made by a leader must be accepted by the majority of the people, because that is the only way to move forward together. My heart raced. This was the moment I had been dreading, the moment I would have to face their judgment. I want you to vote. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbert, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thus common to my words. Who is for and who is against my plan? All in favor. Please raise your hand. I sat down and stared ahead, trying to keep my composure. Anxiety twisted in my stomach. I was certain most of them would reject the plan, dismissing it as too radical, too different. A few hands raised timidly at first, and I felt my heart skip a beat. But as the seconds passed, more and more hands began to rise, some with hesitation, but others with growing confidence. My breath caught in my throat when Maximus raised his hand as well. The room was shifting. The pack was seeing what I saw, feeling the truth of what I was offering. The final count of hands confirmed it. The plan had passed, and the majority of the senior members had supported me. A flood of relief washed over me, followed by an overwhelming sense of victory. I had done it. My hours of hard work, the countless late nights, the doubts I had fought through, it had all led to this moment. I stood up again, my voice full of gratitude. Thank you all for your support. I promise you, I won't disappoint you. My words were sincere, grounded in the belief that this was only the beginning. Now, let's get down to business. As I finished speaking, a cheer erupted from the room. Luna. Luna. And it reverberated in my chest like a heartbeat. The energy in the room electric. The applause, the encouragement, the sense of unity that I felt in that moment, it was intoxicating. The euphoria that surged through me made me feel as though I could take on anything. This was my moment. This was what I had worked for. I gave them my widest smile, my heart soaring, and with that, I turned and left the room, Maxim trailing proudly behind me. The weight of the decision was still there, but now it was a weight I carried with pride. I had won the Pact's trust, and nothing would stand in the way of the changes that were coming.